actually have an Aztec death whistle that's in my office. And I blow, and if I blew this off right now, it'd probably blow the screen off on your side. So I'll save you that one.
Squeegening Podcast Season 2. This podcast is sponsored by Blind Maggot, Magna Colours, M&R, Target Transfers, and Adobe Creative Suite.
I'm Ron from Talk Shirty to me. You can find us at wetalkshirty.com. I'm the owner. Name has evolved over the years, but I've been in the business for about 18 years, and full time I've been in the business about 9 when I took the jump.
So what were you doing in the 9 years? Like, were you just doing it part-time? So you mean?
Yeah. So I came out of the military. I was, in college, and we have this huge thing in my hometown. It's a big St. Patrick's Day festival. And across town is a huge Italian festival that I grew up called San Teobaldo Day, which is La Festa de Ceri. And since I was going to school in Scranton, which is predominantly Irish, I thought it'd be a good idea to show up to the Irish parade in red T-shirts that said St. Patrick was Italian. And and on the back, how many days until our event. And I went to a local screen shop, and back in 2006, they were like $30 a piece. And I was just like, what? Like, I ordered 75 of these, and it's just wording. And I remember having this set skill in high school, but very brief. It wasn't really too deep into it, So here I'm in college. I'm like, you know what? I think I could do a little bit better. So that's when it started, while I was in college. And I remember getting my screen and stapling it and get my mesh, my emulsion. And then I would go to the local businesses around, and I say, hey, you just buy the shirts and I'll print them for free. I need to master my skill. And that kind of, was working for a while. And then I had my first pay job, like they were like, hey, we're going to pay you for this. And I made like a $400 profit. And I remember going on Craigslist, and I bought one of those like ramshackled magnetic flipped, screen printing presses. And I had that, man, for years, because one, it didn't require any power except for these, right? And then, and then at the time I had a flash unit, so 110 in a wall, and a college dorm wasn't really too bad. And the overhead was super low. So here I'm in college, instead of throwing beer parties and making money and possibly getting in trouble, right? Which I used to have maybe 200-300 people in my house over the weekend, right? So there's liability with that. I got into the shirt business, and I was working full-time, not full-time, part-time at the time as a student, and I had to work. So it became a side hustle, technically, over the years. Yeah. And then I graduated college, and I worked for corporate America. So I kept the business because it was part-time. Buddy calls up, hey, I need shirts in my garage. No problem, I make them. So it's like, a couple $100 a month extra in your pocket. Who's gonna cry about that, right? So I work in corporate America. I climb the ladder, and I get right to the top. I'm a sales trainer for a business school that had 34 campuses across the United States. And my job was to go into the admissions of each college and to engage their admissions team to attract students to come to their school. And I was really good at it. I loved it. It was a passion, just like I have for this. And I remember to the point where you get mentally frustrated, like, hey, I have to move out of this position or I'm going to burn out, right? And they promised me the position, and that time came, and they said, sorry, you're too good at what you do. You have to stay where you're at. Now, mind you, like, my health sucks. My relationship at home, I'm gone all the time, right? And I just said, I quit, right? And I'm like, I just can't take the stress. It's not about the awesome money I'm making. It's nothing like that. I just quit because of the stress. So I left. By the time I got to the parking lot, they all met me downstairs, and they said, give us 6 months. We'll find the replacement. Well, 6 months came, same story. And I left. And I was just graduating that weekend. I was graduating from a local university with my MBA to get done with it. And I remember after graduating, walked across the stage, got my diploma, and my family going, hey, you want to go out and celebrate? And I'm like, I have shirts to print. Like, I am home, right? And they're like, well, come on, this is like a big day. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a big day. I got to go home, print these shirts, So I went home, printing shirts in my basement. I just posted a picture of what that basement looked like yesterday on my personal Facebook. I'll send you that outside of this. And, I'm in my basement. I got my screens. It looked like I was making cooking meth or something in my basement. People would come down and be like, what do you do here? And I'm like, I make t-shirts, calm down. Everything's safe. It's, good. But I remember going home, printing these shirts out. And that very night I delivered the shirts to, it's called the Familia Sant'Antonio, right? And I'm Familia di Sant'Ubaldo. So two different families, right? And I go and I deliver in a gold shirt, mind you, to the black team's party. So I'm like walking in there like, this is no, right? And I delivered the shirts. And that's actually the night I actually met my wife as well from across the room. So it hadn't been for my work ethic of going home and working, making these shirts ahead of time and going there, I would have missed the love of my life. So the shirt industry has been really important to me from that moment, because meeting her really got me to the point where now I'm a school teacher teaching this craft actually in a career technology school shortly after. That's a story in itself. We could do another podcast on that, but I was a graphic design / graphics teacher here in my local town, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But there becomes that burn rate when you're doing part-time and teaching full-time, and then all of a sudden you open up a shop, and then the shop starts getting busier, and you're getting dragged, like you're working 20 hours a day, and then there's this balance. And I remember my wife, it was this time of year in 2013, I was getting burned out. I was tired. I'm working, 6 in the morning to 3:30 to 2 a.m. So I'd leave teaching at 3:30 to 2 a.m. printing the craft, right? And I said, Grace, my wife, I'm like, I'm getting real burned out. She goes, why won't you just do this full time? And I'm like, well, there's risk involved. Like I have a salary and benefits. And she's like, I'm like, but that's a good question. She's like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't have like many people believing in me. Like, how it is, business owners. There's not people like cheering you on, like, yeah, you could do it. They don't like that. They don't want people outside the norm, right? So I remember my wife saying, well, I believe in you. And I remember getting like that powerful feeling. I'm like, you're right. Like if this is it, we're going in. So I resigned and I didn't return after the Thanksgiving here in my side of the town. And I remember going into my shop that first Monday after Thanksgiving. And I'm sitting there like, what do I do now?
Yeah,
what
it must
do I
have
do?
felt
I have all
really
this time.
difficult.
Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I was lost. I didn't know. Yeah, it was great. But I'm like, now I have 10 hours a day not where I was teaching that now I could put into the business, right? So then that's where we started exploding, because I took one shop, moved to another shop, which is difficult moving, but I moved and we kept expanding. And then here we are, and we're already expanding now. So within the past, since 2010 years, we have went from a little, 10 by 12 shop to a 10,000 square plus facility with an addition coming onto that. Pretty intense.
It's very intense. I really like the drone video of your studio, because it's like, then you really get the mass of how big you are. There's so many questions about like how your business model has actually changed from, and like what kind of customers you're taking on, because when you even like start interacting with you divert people into like commercial and contract, right? So can you tell me about like how the model has changed, and are you making those calls on like what's more profitable, or like why would you opt to, like what kind of percentage is a good percentage for contract printing against standard commercial work, would you say?
You do this long enough, and then we the global pandemic, which was COVID, right? So when I started off, it was basically, hey, hustle, make what you can, get people to believe, buy into what you're doing, right? So it doesn't matter where you start at, you have to find what works for you. But in the beginning, family, friends, networking, get jobs in the door to get comfortable, so that when the bigger opportunities arise, you're ready for them, right? If that makes sense. If I was just to jump, head in right now and start reaching for the stars, I would fail miserably, and I would not be able to fulfill my end to my buyer, right? To who I'm selling to or who I'm printing for. So you have to make those growing pains somewhat, so that you could become more knowledgeable and ready for when those opportunities hit. Like if somebody calls up and says, hey, I need 35,000 shirts in 2 days, you're either going to say yes or no. When you say yes, it's on, right? And we did that challenge this past summer, and we made it happen. But boy, was it taxing.
Yes.
It was a long day. But as far as it goes from retail the contract, I looked at it 2 ways. Before the pandemic, we were mostly all retail and we were kicking butt. Like we live in a small populated area and we were maybe a 70% market share in our area. So we were pulling a lot from local, but now you're dealing with the customer front end. So now you're dealing with the sales, showing them the product, going through the artwork, people who are not in our industry, like they don't understand what vector art is, right? So you have to explain this process multiple times. And you could do really well with automating that and having the same thing for them to fill out before they get to you. But there becomes a point where you're growing and all of a sudden production's up here, but you can't keep up, here's my sales, here's my production, right? Because retail is so engaging. And I don't know how it is for most printers, and we're all in the same boat. But when you go and look for inventory, it's far in between. You could spend 5 to 7 hours a day looking for stuff. So with all this happening right after COVID, we had some contract and we had retail. And this some contract started creeping up because this side, they had more demand because they wanted to send more work. And I'm going, hey, this is a contract pricing. There's no cost of goods sold. They're sending me the blanks. I'm not scoping the internet 5 to 6 hours. So now this is starting to creep up. Now I'm even looking at the numbers. I'm like, wow, it's a lot more work. And there's a lot more supplies, but time, when you have employees and you have to weigh that out. And as it starts tipping, the opportunities get bigger on the one side for me. Whereas, yeah, hey, that 5K we did is big. But, when you're printing for Machine Gun Kelly tour and they're coming in the thousands and the 2000s, and it's coming up here. Now you hit that point where, okay, I'm going to do some retail, but now I'm going to be picking and choosing who I want to work with. Whereas over here, you have, the local plumber who orders $12,000 a year from you calls up and only orders 7. Now I have to go to my sales team. Oh my God, we have to hustle to make up that 4. We have to make that number up. Now it's the other way. As long as they're sending the numbers, I could always make up for it here in the retail sector. And this over here is doing really well because it's no cost of goods. You're just your supplies, labor, overhead, and you're getting paid basically, if you price it right, what you're profiting over here anyway. So if you're retail and you take all your numbers and subtract it out and you know what you're making, it should reflect what your contract price is, right? So your profit here should be your profit over here, but you're just not doing legwork over here in the contract world.
It must be so easy for some people to kind of, who aren't looking at their numbers, to get sucked into contract and then think that they're doing all this work, but it's actually so much less profitable per shirt, that they're actually slowly driving their business into the ground. So you have to keep, like, how are you keeping your eye on all these numbers and figuring out how to price? Because I know you have like, I've seen in previous things that you've got like a price match guarantee, and I don't know how long ago it was, but you did have a thing which was like no minimums. And then you're doing jobs which are like 100,000 units and you're taking them off the back of a lorry. It's all very scary. And you could make I would never know how to price 100,000 shirts.
So it goes back to what I said before, like you're working with professionals, right? And the companies that I'm working with, they send you everything ahead of time and you agree to it or you don't. So you say, okay, it's 100,000 units. What are you paying per unit? Is it 30 cents? Is it 65 cents? How many colors are in the print? Same process, but all that is negotiated before we start. It's a big picture idea as well, right? You don't want to take contract work. Like say you take 25,000 t-shirts, they're red with white print. Well, and they're on a tri-blend, it's going to be a print, a flash, a roll, a print, right? And how fast is that press able to move, even if you're automatic or manual? Scale it even down. Say you're a manual shop and you take 1,000-piece order and you undercut yourself. If you could put out 600-piece orders a day as the manual shop printer, and then this guy over here is trying to cut you down your price for 1,000, say no, because it's that sounds great, right? It sounds awesome, but in all honesty, you have to see what's profitable for your shop. So if that 1,000-piece order is going to take you 3 days and 6 100-piece jobs takes you 1 day, why would you take that 1,000-piece job? Why would you undercut yourself? If that opportunity is right though, and the volume's there, say the guy's sending you 1,000 pieces a week, that might be worth it to you because now it's stable income, right? Whereas the other jobs are not guaranteed for, say, the soccer mom might have went to a different vendor that year the teacher might have changed here. I mean, there's so many things that could change over the year. You know, it really, really could. It really could. But that's how you have to gauge. You have to look at what works for you in order for you to be able to move that through, you know, if that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. Like, moving topic quite drastically, there's something that I noticed on your social media, like especially on your Facebook. And it's like, I haven't seen this before, where I think it probably comes from your sales background, but you're not like posting about, oh, we do these shirts, this is how much we are. You're like asking people about nostalgic things, like what 80s show do you miss, or something that your kids see around your house and you don't understand. And is that just generating conversations, and then you kind of slide in that you're the t-shirt printer? That seems genius.
Right. So my social media tactic, one our stories, is just stuff that's going on here, right? So if you want to follow us, like we just put an we're right now installing an LTS from Saudi. The guys, the techs in there all morning, I'm like greasy, grody all over the floor, you know, so you never know what's going to happen in the shop. As far as the engagements go, that's what matters, right? So you want to get people engaged. Nobody really wants to know how the sausage is made, right? So you don't go to the butcher shop, say, hey, take me in the back. I would. I want to see how it works. I want to see how you make that, but not everybody, right? So you have to find who you want to reach out to. We are trying to create brand awareness and grow our page because it helps our customer base out. So when we're able to ask the question, like, you know, what does this living room look like to you? And I get almost 50,000 to 75,000 views on that, right? That's huge, because now my growth, like on Instagram, we have over 50,000 followers from a viral reel and video we had, right? And then our Facebook page, we're about 14,000, approaching 14,000. But every time we post for a customer, it's going out to the masses. And that's why through COVID, it was very successful for us, because a lot of people jumped into social media like they should have been before that, because now they're posting to 100 and some people who's probably their family, you know, and there was no able to get the word out. So when we ran those campaigns, we were able to get to the masses quicker, because you're growing that growth for the reach and the engagement. It doesn't always have to be about your industry. But now when people say, oh, you know, cognitive, they're thinking in their head, oh, I know a shirt guy. We talk shirty or talk shirty, because they follow us, because they're engaging into our conversations more. You know, Ron acting like an idiot on camera is fun. Trust me. You know, seeing all the cool machines is cool, and seeing all the stuff we do is great. But when you can engage them and ask questions and really get in front of them and have them typing back and forth, creating that conversation, the algorithms love it. You know, so we're having fun with that. It's nothing really new that's out there. It's just something that you have to stay on track, and at least post once or twice a week like that. And the numbers will just start growing for you. And that just helps you overall. So why pay for something when it can organically just grow, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Are you on TikTok as well with your socials?
I dabbled into TikTok. We are right now approaching, we have a help ad out right now for a social media person to join our team to just take it over. I'm growing in different areas, and being a contract printer, we don't really post as much as we used to, because we're not trying to engage the retail sales. Like, I get hit up once or twice a week from local, you know, news, not a week, but every other week, a news station, or, you know, hey, could we put you in this? Could we thank you in our forum? And what that does is it creates the customer base I don't want. Because one, they see you making a donation, so there's more people coming in looking. Two, if you hey, I need 24 pieces, minimum's now 72. You know, like, things change. So things change over the years, and you want to put out what you need to, right? So I try to cut back on the social media of, hey, we're doing shirts for $5. You got to get it in here. You know, we're selective on what we're posting, per se, right? Whereas back then, it was all out, whatever it was.
Yeah, because I've only been to America a few times, but I do really remember watching television, and the style of advertising is so intense. Like, it's in your face. It's saying what the slogan is, saying what the number is, and you're like the big personality that's like taken that on. Is that what you're kind of like dialing back? Or are you always going to be Ron from We Talk Shirty?
Oh yeah, I'll always be Ron from Talk Shirty. I mean, I love that, you know, persona that we have, and I'll be the face. It's just somebody putting the content together and making those, there's a level of education and stuff that I could only learn and go. And I know when to hand it off when the time is there. And right now, like everything's running smooth, but I'm not able to grow it to where we needed to go next. So bringing in somebody who I, could be key to this to help us get to where we need to be, it's definitely worth that investment, because I could only do so much, right? As a business owner, you can only do so much. I couldn't do so much. I hired an employee, and that employee takes that task, and that's why they're important. That's why they're vital to, what your growth is, having a great team and knowing their part in their role. And stuff I can't do, I train and move it on or pass it on so that I could grow in different areas and I could focus at what I'm good. Because there's things I'm not good at, but I know how to do, right? So social media, like, just kind of winging it and it works, right? But there's so much opportunity there. Why not bring in somebody who could help us grow that certain area, and for different reasons, whether it be sales or just industry related, because a lot of people follow us from industry, and that's great and all. I love that. And I love our colleagues, and I love collaborating. I love talking to all the shops, and that's what it's about, right? Getting better, educating each other. But there's no blueprint or book in this industry. We're all writing this. You're writing it, I'm writing it. Like we are the ones writing this industry, right? There's nothing, you want to open up a pizza shop, there's a book. There's a book. You can get it.
You literally have it.
I mean,
I thought it was a metaphor, but no.
You can get the basics, but unless you're talking to shop owners and people who've been in industry, you're going to struggle until you actually find your fit, right? So that's why our community is very important. And the stuff we put out is that we're going to be working on is to help shops, little hacks, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Stuff that really helps out and to grow, because we've all been where we started, unless somebody was handed a business and they, came in at that level. But I would say the majority of us have started down here and have worked our way up, where we're at now.
Yeah. Is that to do with your collaboration with like the magazines? Because I see that you're a bit of a contributor to Screen Printing Magazine.
Yeah. So I jumped on with Screen Print Magazine after I had an award. It was the top whatever under 35. And then I jumped on with Adrian from Screen Print Magazine, and I joined the board so that I could pass the knowledge on and make the decisions of what the content would be provided and how to help, what's coming forward. That digital edition that's out now, it's very interactive. I mean, come on, we have the generation that wants to, sit here and watch a podcast when they're in between jobs. Like we're on the go. We're on the go, right? And then there's nobody, and then there's still people in our industry that want a hard magazine to look at, right? But the people that are, in the next 15 years, the paper's going to the wayside. And, the algorithms for Facebook clearly state that they're going to be moving to mostly video in the next 5 years. And all those static, posts are going to go away. They want video content. That's what's growing, right? So that magazine is great for an industry because you have like Marshall Atkinson, you have Kudre, you have like all the leaders and the people who have been through the thick and the thin, but now you add that to the new school with guys like myself and Steve from Campus Inc. Like there's the young generation that's coming through the magazine to help grow it, to get it to the point where it's an index for you to be able to go to, get answers, and move forward, which I think would be vital to our industry. Like, here's a catalog, here's a video of how this shop did this, and you're able to go and see that, somewhere to go and grab that out of. And, like Brian Moore from, Rock, like, dude, right? Like, look what he was making those videos. Everybody in our industry was laughing at him. Well, who's laughing now, right? Like the guy is, he's killing it. And his videos are very, very important to the industry because there's so many people who try and they want to learn. And it's great for people starting out because they could engage in those videos, watch what he's doing, and do it themselves right there at home or in their garage, and then grow it from there. So Ryan, like, hats off to him because he really grew this industry out in those regards, because he showed the content, one of the first ones, him, and there were some other, guys before him as well that were, right at the same time. But to see his company go from where it was to where it is now, it's just blows my mind. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah. What are the kind of like business? Do you read a lot of like business books, or do you have like mentors, or like if you're mentoring the next generation, who's like mentoring you? Is it your peers, or are you just like in a community of other print shops of your size?
So I'm always trying. You're always trying to educate yourself, right? I'm huge on that. So there's books that I listen to, like Profit First, but it all comes from guys that are my colleagues in the industry. You reach out, what's new, what could I read, how could I get better? But myself, like I consult, I go into shops, I have all this knowledge, I go in and I can guarantee that I will save you a couple $1,000s just in your shop by just showing up for 2 days or a day even, and I do that. But I only learn from going to the shops from all the years I've been there and the guys that I mentor and then the people that mentor me. So I have like Ryan Kasparian, he comes to my shop and he's like,
Ryan Kasparian.
Yeah, he whips us right into shape. He's fantastic. He's one of the younger guys in our industry who has worked in large scale shops, and he comes in and he dials everything in, tells you what's wrong, and then we try to work on it and correct it, right? And then working with my colleagues like Andy from Shirkong and Dylan from Upstate and all those guys and Scott from King Screen. There's just and Gorilla Joe. Like we're all in a text group. We all text each other. We have a problem. We're able to get answers right away, because there's a point level where you're at a shop size and there's some people just can't help you, right? So we're banging stuff off each other when needed, which is great, right? And I know there's so many shops that I reach out to on social media like, hey, I know you have this piece of machinery and it's stuck. Could you please, reach out? It's sometimes faster than hitting a tech up, right? Because we're all in the same business, but we're not all competing in the same, arena. I mean, our industry is huge. It's massive, right? So I would say being a consultant leader myself only grow because I have, I talked to Marshall, you talked to Tudor, all those programs that I've been through have strengthened where we're able to be headed and the visions that I see, because again, there's no playbook for this. So banging, who you're hanging out with really does matter, and who you're talking to, because if you're not in the right group and you're not talking to the right people, you're not going to be able to hit those channels correctly, and you're just going to struggle within. I didn't even know that there was trade shows. Could you imagine? Like I was at that same path.
At what point? Oh, when you're in college, though. Okay, that's not too bad.
A parade, just like, hey, like I'm here, and I didn't know that Impressions in Atlantic City was going on. And then I went down, and I'm like, oh my God, my wife's like, Ronnie, I'm proud of you. Like, you built your whole shop off of Craigslist. And I'm like, I know, but I'm buying all this fancy stuff now, so like, here we are. But yeah, going to the trade shows, educating yourself, talking to your reps, they're full of knowledge. That's what they're selling. And yeah, they're selling you a product, but they've been in the industry. They understand it. Talk about your inks, talk about your emulsions, it's not always what's new, it's what works, right? So talk with those people and your vendors. They should be educated enough. If they're not, I'll supply you with a list of people you can buy from that will give you answers and help you through, because that's what matters. Having that network of Flatiron, getting those people together so that when you are stuck or need to move, you have those answers. And that's what's important.
No, 100%. Also, a lot of smaller shops think they're too small to ask the big guys for help and stuff. Like I was talking to Keith from International Colours, and I didn't realize how much knowledge he's got, not just on ink, but on emulsions and processes and consulting. And it's just like a whole wave of information that they know about. And they're really free that is literally their job. That's what they're paid to do, is to help screen printers grow. It's awesome how the industry's open up for all that communication, and just everyone's much more helpful now. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. Like, people hit me up all the time. I always answer, I will always answer. And that's what it's about, and that's what it's about. Can I talk to you more generally about equipment? Because I know you're getting into loads of automation. You're big on CTS, but are you quite married to M&R as a brand for your autos, in the future? And have you thought about digital squeegees? That's quite a lot of questions in one, but. Okay. So, I'm very happy with where we're at as far as where we've grown to. I never thought I'd be a 4-auto, soon to be a 5-auto shop, right? That's just blows my mind every day I come here. But I'm not married to really any brand. I base it off of service. Like, what am I able to get, and how fast, and who could service and fix my presses if they're down, right? I'm really capable. I could do electric, plumbing, HV, I could do anything. So when something breaks down, I jump right in, right? Most shops, they don't do that, but most of them do as well. Like, you want to know your machines in and out, because sometimes, 2 days isn't going to cut it. You need to be back up and running in an hour. Otherwise, you're going to be thrown off track. So there's a lot of times something will go down and I'm back there under the machine on the phone with,
the company, whether it's Workforce or M&R, whatever it is. I base not how I buy, it's off the service, right? So I have M&R majority here because I'm in the tri-state of the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and our techs are within a half hour to 45 minutes. And our parts come next day, even, air night, but however it is. But we have suppliers in our area to get parts if needed as well. So for me, that was the decision I made it off of service, not so much of brand. Doesn't matter really what press you have. It's the skill level that you have. I could print the same amount on a Rock. I could do the same on an Annettte. I had an Annettte. I could do the same on a Workhorse. It's how you know how to print, right? So a printer learning this process should be able to run any press a job once they learn that machine, right? So I don't base it off of, hey, I'm tied to M&R, because I have all M&R. I did it because of service, and I have friends in the industry, and that's what they run. So when we're talking, it's easy to collaborate, right? And say, here. But you have the forums and social media for any brand. There's a Rock owner one, there's an M&R owner one, a Workhorse owner, an Annettte, there's a Brown one. I mean, there's so many different groups. You join that group and you get into those people, and now you're able to talk amongst each other to fix things, right? So being automated is where I'm at. It's not that I don't want employees. I love my employees. It's just that automation takes the, not the skill level either, but the automation helps production move fluid, and it takes that human error out of it. So screen making I was just, I have Dan here from Saudi and Bill, and they're putting in the LTS. And I just laughed because, 2012, I took a picture of my screen room, and there's my exposure unit. It was this big, like a 20 by 24 screen. Here it is. And I put the screen down. It's taped to the back, a piece of foam, a cutting board I took from the restaurant I worked at, cinder block, and I turn it on, and that's how I made my screens. And now I'm in there, and there's a laser that's going to be doing this. In a matter of 2 minutes, I have 2 screens, full left chest and full back, right?
Yeah, beautiful.
But that process doesn't just work. Like, you just don't buy a CTS and say, oh, I'm going to be good. You want to have consistent coding. So now you have to get into a coder, because hand coding is great, but the heads that move on this, whether it's an iMage or CTS like a Douthid, or you have the laser, everything's running very smooth against the surface. So if that little dimple from that, when you drip from your hand coat is sticking out and it hits that head, you're talking a couple hundred to a couple $1,000s in repair because of that little nip.
Really?
Now the auto coder, every screen is the same. Everyone is exactly the same. So now you're using the same amount of tape off. Like, everything is getting better at the process so that it's going right. And then when that's done, after it's made with the CTS, I have the Douthid as well. We're keeping that as the backup. But once that's made, then it gets exposed, and then it runs through a developer. Now, it was great. I stood months and days and hours and hours. That was my job. I spray out the screens to get the image out. And there's this human error in that. Did you miss a half tone? Did I pull the trigger too hard? Did I get too close? There's a craft to that. I have the knowledge, but for me to train, our workforce, which is there, I rather put people in different areas. Now the machine does it. I have a Lotus Holland developer. So now you feed it through to one side, it comes out the other, and the screen's done, and you dry it, and you're off to the races, taped and on press, right? So that automation cycle, there are investments that you make, but it's investments in time, because time you cannot get back, as you know, and many of us as well. There's only so much you could do in a day, but if you could automate it to do double the work with the, in that same time frame, you're only going to be able to scale because you have those automations in place. And either A, kill yourself and hustle and make it work, or B, kill yourself, hustle, make it work, save your money, and then go B, you buy the equipment, relax a little bit, and be able to grow, and just keep investing in yourself in the automation. Like, an automatic press is not just an automatic press and you're going to make a ton of shirts. No, an automatic press is a press plus air plus the electricity plus the screens that you now have to buy 23 by 31, or if you're running even bigger, right? Now you have floods, squeegees, ink. There's going to be heat. There's going to be different flashes, whether they're quartz. There's so much that goes into it. But on top of that, now you need a bigger dryer. Now you need somebody to run the press. You need a puller, and you need somebody at the end of the dryer for quality control. Because when you're manually printing, boom, right? If you're a pusher or a puller, whatever it is, pop it up and you look down and there's a pinhole, you stop it right there at that one shirt. Times on an auto, you just went full rotation. There's 13 items with the pinhole up here. So that's 13 on the Zim gun before it's caught, because the puller can't see what's coming around, right? So you do as much as you can quality control. But when you invest into an auto, it's not just, hey, I'm going to be able to produce more. You're making that investment to produce more, but you also have to master that craft and understand how it works in order for it to become more profitable, right? So having all these autos are great, but they also are a huge investment because you have 2 operators per one, right? And then sometimes it'll be 1 operator on a revolver mode, like depends how you move them around. But to know the machines and have that automation and understand how that works in the bigger scale, that's the trickiest part. You know, how many do we need? How much could it output? And then it goes to the printer, like how could they load? How could they unload? You know, some are faster than others. So there's a lot of variables when it comes to automatic printing. I remember, and I miss the days I had my manual press and I had my other employee next to me on her manual press. And I'd be like, watch me do 100 shirts in 20 minutes on black ink. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. And there's, you know, I'm flying through it. And now with the auto, you set it up, you do it all. It's just as fast. But guess what isn't hurting? My arms, my back, you know, like my elbows, nothing. Now it's just load and unload. Whereas before I'm like moving around, you know, it's crazy. So the automation takes that workload off, you know. Our auto reclaim, you know, we have the Lotus Holland Evo, which is great for tight spaces, 3 chambers. Franz, he was great to deal with. He's just what works for you, you know, so that's the route we went with. You load it in, it comes out at the end, you give it a final spray, it goes on the rack, and then you're right off to reclaim. I mean, right off to, you know, putting your emulsion on. So before it was dip tanks and, you know, spray outs and a huge messy area. And now I'm able to keep it cleaner, and you're able to do 100, 150 screens a day through automation. And, you know, he's just back there giving it a fresh rinse and getting the stuff out versus hours, you know, hour chemicals and different things. So that's what works, you know, what's going to work.
Talking about people who aren't like getting into that, because it just seems like one domino hits another domino and you just have to keep automating and growing and everything fits in. But like, is there something like you were talking about screen printing hacks for the magazine, for example? Like, is there one thing that all the studios can do now at any scale that would like greatly improve their printing?
I would say a great hack, whether you're manual, like for a manual shop, how about we do that? Is that cool? So manual shop or an auto shop. The greatest hack that I used to use, I don't do it anymore because we have the registration, you know, systems on our presses. But what I would do is where my registration dot was, you know, like my registration mark, which is center. Most of us keep it center, right? What I would do is I would print and measure my palette at the top above it. So all I had to do is slide my screen to this line, and I knew that I'm my 3 fingers down to the top of my print, because the top of my art above my registration mark, that line, is my palette. So all I have to do is when I'm putting them on press, to slide that line to the top of the palette, and I know I'm going to be right there with all of them, are real close, because that's where I'm printing from. So that would be a shop hack that worked for me, that really, you know, speed a lot of things up. Because I was manual, again, I was one piece of tape and it covered that line and it covered my registration mark. You know, now it's tough because we're not sliding the pallets. You know, you're not putting it down and sliding on an auto. We're tri-locking them into place, right? So that was a great shop hack for me. Did you ever hear something like that before?
Yes, I think so. It might have even been from you because I've been following you for years, or it was like heard from you and regurgitated or something. Yeah, I think that is brilliant. Like, just, so what you're saying is just expose literally on the screen the edge of your platen, so that when you load the shirt and the neckline's there, it's always going to hit in that perfect chest position.
Your artwork in your template on your computer, you'll have your registration mark, right? And then go out to, you know, take one out to press and then measure up like above the registration mark where your palette end is. So that when you put your screens into your manual, right, you just slide that line back to the top of your palette, which never should move, right? and then you just lock it in and start your registration that way. So then you know that you are every time my three fingers, which is the top of my print. So every time I slide that screen, it's right there, and it helps you so you're not like moving. Where am I at? Am I in the center? Just slide it back, and you know you're at the edge of the palette, which means that's as far as your screen needs to go, right? So that it's just one extra step in art, but you just make that template and you just drop your artwork there every single time, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we've actually got like a template that people can download on our website. It's just for a very standard M&R platen, but I think I could add in something like that. I could have the Ron's layer on and off, toggle on and off.
Yeah, so you just, you have your registration mark, and then above it, you'd measure off where your palette is, whether it's 2 inches or 3 inches, and you draw that line. And then every time you expose the screen, that line's always there. And when you load it in, it should drop down, and you just pull that line right to the top of your platen, and you're good to go.
I could just add your face instead of a line. And then you're like, yeah, I know he's in. He's in the center. Apart from like automation and stuff, are you kind of not worried about, but are you kind of thinking about what's happening in DTG and those huge Amazon factories? And are you thinking about competing with some of those crazy shops, or are you happy with screen printing?
Boy, it's more exhilarating to see that, when you walk in and you see like, I don't know, 40,000 square feet of just inventory and print love. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's e-commerce. People want stuff fast, and they want it, like, hey, I want a shirt 1 or 2 or 3. So there's always a market for that. And it's definitely growing in that industry. And my contract customers are like, hey, digital, but they're not really full in yet. There's going to always be a market for both screen printing and the digital world. There's no doubt about it, but both will always be sustainable. They're both going to grow. Nothing is really like DTF is going to take over to, certain areas because it's durable, it lasts, it's easy to make. But as far as like those big factories that are outputting those, I mean, I've seen and been in them, and wow, this is quite the operation. And I mean, it's really profitable and it's growing, but it's a great market and it's something to invest in. But unless you're doing a full investment, right, there's just no way to really do it at a smaller scale. Like if you're a shop and you have a $30,000 DTG machine and it's not running all the time, you're going to run into a lot of problems. They're going to dry up. Like you're going to have issues, right? So, when I had 6 brothers here, we were able to have those, like they'll move, and you could really keep up with that stuff, but there's pre-treat and all that. So with that, if you have that all dialed in, which I've seen in shops, like those Corneats are unbelievable because they do everything for you, and then they're print and they go and they're in the bag, like Zazzle, like all those companies doing those 1-drops. It's so huge. It's such a huge market. Like Amazon's investing in it. Obviously, they invest in everything, but automation with the digital squeegee, for example, like we're ready for it. I'll easily add it when I'm ready for it. There's just so many variables for it. That big high-end equipment and something, you talk to your colleagues like, hey, what happens if a head, what happens if it strikes a hoodie? Like what if, you had it for shirts, say it wasn't adjusted, you strike a hoodie, what could happen? Well, that could be like $5,000 in heads just from that strike, and you're like, oh, do I really want to do that? But it's there, it's profitable. Shops are adding them. I'm ready for one. I can't wait to add one in the near future. We're just not there yet. So I look for, one, is there a market? Who could I sell it to? And in contract printing, people will book that up for you. No doubt. Like they will book that because you have it. But does it pay yet? What are the variables? Now you're going to Waterbased. You're doing Waterbased underbases. And, there's a whole new training aspect to it too, right? So you have to make sure your shop's ready for it. And there's a lot of moving around for it as well. Like we print Waterbased, so we're ready to go, but we need to add another press just for that digital squeegee to work. We're undersized. You can't go anything under a 14 color, M&R to get the digital squeegee. I have the 12 color Cobra and it would work, but I'm going to lose that one optimal head that I would need for it to really get the max out of it, for it to work.
Why do you need a 14 if you don't need all those screens, if you're just doing an underbase and then the digital?
Oh, the digital squeegee up three spots.
Oh, it takes like its mass is that big.
Yeah, it's going to take over 3 heads, right? And then you're going to print your underbase, and then there's going to be a flash, and then there's going to be a roll, and then there's going to be another white, and then there's going to be a flash, and then there's going to be a, and then there's a coat after it. I mean, there's a lot. It's a lot more than just, hey, it prints the thing on there, So, but the cool part is when you have a digital machine like that, you could print one solid underbase, and you could change that image inside infinite. Like you could print job after job after job. As long as that base is the same, you could have all the jobs loaded in there to then print anything inside there as long as it's the same parameter. So, I mean, profitable. It's really profitable. So say you're, like Fanatics, they have a big square here, but then they have like New York, and it has like a whole thing of New York Yankees going through it. And then they'll run, say, 1,000 of those off, and then it goes right to Boston, and then it goes right to the Mets. It's all within that square or that design pattern, right? So technology with that, it's going to go through the roof, huge. But it's very, very expensive.
Yeah, it's good to hear someone like you say that screen printing is always going to have its place there. That's reassuring. But you'd be on top of my list as someone to sell a digital squeegee to, because of all your experience with like the DTG and the screen printing and the space. And anyway,
there's so many out there. Like Rock has a great. They're doing a great job. You see those big players, like those big platforms for DTG, and like Red Wall out in the middle of the country. They just put in that huge one from Brother. That is insane. It's just so insane to me. But to see it in action, like I did in Vegas, it makes perfect sense. Like if I had the backer, I'd buy that. It'd be sitting right over here in my shop right now, and I'd be going. But there's only so much I could do. I'm the man behind the show here. There's no investors here. So it's just our hard work and keep putting it back into the company.
Yeah. I have seen other people, like you mentioned. I've kind of forgotten his name. The Printavo's mate. You mentioned his name earlier.
Steve from Campus 6.
Yes. Yeah. So he had a massive investor, didn't he? Like out of, is it Mark Cuban or something?
Yeah, he's doing the NIL. He's doing that, with the college athletes being able to be paid now. So he found that working with them, and Mark Cuban is actually an investment group is putting money into that space, which is unbelievable. He's like through the roof. And I think he had like a couple universities last year. He's already up to 25. So it's huge. It's such a great opportunity. But where there isn't an opportunity, you got to make that opportunity, right? So when I said screen printing will always be around, it's because there's always going to be a place for it. There's moms with crickets, and they're making money doing the heat transfer vinyl, right? And there's screen printing. And there's always going to be guys that are trying to scale and get the bigger stuff. But there's always going to be that medium where it's like, hey, I could do this. I could do it out of my garage. I can make some extra cash, because there's people that are looking for, hey, I just want shirts. You know what I mean? Versus the people who are like, hey, I'm putting this in a retail store, and it has to have a clip here and a sticker here. Like there's different scalabilities, and there's different places that you want to go, So you drive yourself to that market and you get to where you want to go, but you have to learn it, do it. So that's why I think will definitely always be around, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're like hyping me up like a hype man, because like your energy is just coming through. Like I can't imagine working for you. You'll be like, if you're like if you're seen like stood still doing something.
I actually have an Aztec death whistle that's in my office, and I blow. And if I blew this off right now, it'd probably blow the screen off on your side. So I'll save you that one. But this is a Aztec death whistle, and the warriors down in the Aztec times, there would only be 50 of them running through the woods, but they would blow this whistle, and it sounded like thousands of them running at you. So I'm always, always high energy, always have stuff like this, So
that whistle is a metaphor for you, and like what one man could do, like what 10 men can do, you can do yourself.
On the office, there's a lady next to me. Her name's Doreen. She's awesome. I'll blow it off. She just looks at me like, I'm going to kill you, But, like just like little water pistols that shoot like little beads out of it, like stuff like that, stuff. We're always having fun. That's all. You gotta stay, with it.
Yeah. Well, I think your business is definitely reflecting your personality and your energy. And I really appreciate all your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to like tell people as like a little pep talk for smaller printers or anything, or is there anything you wanted to end on?
Honestly, I got to where I am through hard work, and that's all it was. That it was hard work, hustling and putting in the time, and surrounding myself not only just with printers in the industry, but the people in my life, right? So I had people that were holding me back. It's okay to let go. Let go of those people holding you back and find the people that want to help you get there, right? So if you want to, your business to thrive and you want to be successful, look for those people that are doing it and try to network with those people. And it's okay to say goodbye to relationships that just aren't working and helping you, whether it be family, friends, close friends, people from, way back. They're going to hold you back, versus what you're going to be able to grow towards. So it's okay to let go, and it's okay to say no in this industry. And that's really it. That's how I live every day. I wake up and I move forward every day. I'm here today, and tomorrow, hopefully I get there.
Thank you so much, Ron. Really, really appreciate it. Like, I'm stoked to have you on. Actually, it's really impressive. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep up the love them.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to your very expensive LTS machine. Hope they install it nicely and it goes well.